What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? I had an Android phone which had a Google Cards feature option that could notify you like 15 minutes to home if you were out. I thought this feature was annoying and useless, so I kept the feature off. After several months of no cards notifications, one night I'm at home and a card pops up saying 35 minutes to home, pinning me at a random intersection on the other side of town. Let's call it First Street and Story, I think. That's weird. I'm not even way over there. I don't even know where that is. I've never been to that area. I go to my card setting to turn it back off, but it's already turned off. Double quote. That's weird. Double quote. Next night, exact same thing happens. Double quote. 35 minutes to home from First Street and Story. What the? Still definitely not over there. Check cards feature and the notifications are still turned off, so no idea why I'm getting a notification. Few days later, a friend and I are out running errands and he misses his intended exit, so he takes the next one. Once on the streets, I ask, "Where are we? I've never been over here." Suddenly a car to our right tries to turn left and crashes right into us. Messed up the wheel to be unable to turn, so he pulled forward to the curb to call a tow truck. We had our kids in the car, so I call my sister to pick us all up. When my sister asks me for the location, I look up at the street signs. First Street and Story. I think, that's weird. I'm not even way over there. I don't even know where that is. I've never been to that area. I go to my card setting to turn it back off, but it's already turned off. That's weird. Double quote. Next night, exact same thing happens. 35 minutes to home from First Street. I was 11 or 12. Early 70s. Dad came home one Friday and announced we were going to Kings Island, a fairly new amusement park, tomorrow. I begged him to let me invite my friend Chris to come along. He said okay, as long as Chris could pay his own way. Great. Off to the phone I went. Pick it up. No dial tone. Double quote. Hello? Double quote. Oh my god. Is that you? Double quote. Chris? I was just calling you. What's up? Double quote. I was calling to ask if you'd like to come to Kings Island tomorrow. But you have to pay your own way. No phone ever rang. We both called each other at the same time to ask the exact same thing. Was going down the stairs and went past my brother who was coming up the stairs. Said hi and he sort of mumbled back. Got downstairs and walked through to the kitchen, only to find him standing there. WTF. Skinwalker. What is a skinwalker? A skinwalker is a Navajo witch who has practiced black magic to become a shapeshifter. This is late and pretty stupid, but why not? I was once showering and after about 10 minutes in the shower I hear something ping and hit the floor. I looked down and saw a penny. I was pretty perplexed, as you can imagine, but figured whatever, I'll keep it, as I imagined it could be good luck. I kept the penny in my wallet for a few years in a zipped side pouch. I never really told anyone because it was kind of pointless to talk a random penny I was superstitious about. So a few years later, while at a music festival, a girl in our tent woke up to her penny in her butt crack. We all laughed it off as having a wild night. However, I remembered the penny I had, and when I looked in the zipped pouch I was shocked to find it was gone. I told my friends and they didn't believe me. I think they threw that penny away too. PL. Doctor teleporting us penny. Had a dream of some kid that I had never seen before dancing at a busy party. He was wearing a blue shirt, black pants, had Bieber hair, and there was a purple strobe light on the wall behind him. Wake up. Think to myself, "Huh, what an odd dream," and carry on with my life. Several years later I was at my cousin's wedding reception, chillin' and hanging out with a different cousin. Music comes on and we start jumping up and down. And then I realized that I was reliving the dream. Same clothes, same hair, same purple lighting in the background. I feel like shitty, like this happens to me every so often. Me too. So many moments that I just realize. Double quote. Wait a sec. I remember this. A plausible explanation is your brain running multiple scenarios as a mean to prepare himself in one way. One of them might happen by pure chance. Or not. And I shouldn't be talking about psychology when I know physics. This one is more silly than creepy. But once when I went with my grandmother to her friend's house, I was on the porch by myself with the grandmother's friend's cat. And the cat looked me right in the eyes and said the word meow. It didn't sound like a cat meowing at all. It sounded very convincingly like a human carefully enunciating the word meow. 2 syllables. In their most thoroughly unconvincing cat voice. Like someone intentionally doing a very poor impression of a cat. As a joke. But it was perfectly in time with the movement of the cat's mouth and there was no one else around. So it had to have been the cat saying it. TLDR. Met a cat that could talk. But the only word it knew was meow. It didn't sound like a cat meowing at all. It sounded very convincingly like a human carefully enunciating the word meow. 2 syllables, in their most thoroughly unconvincing cat voice. Like someone intentionally doing a very poor impression of a cat, as a joke. But it was perfectly in time with the movement of the cat's mouth and there was no one else around. So it had to have been the cat saying it. TLDR. Met a cat that could talk, but the only word it knew was. I was walking my dog. On his leash there is a little plastic attachment that holds his poop bags. I dropped the leash onto the ground. I heard the plastic hit the ground. But it turns out it ended up back in my hand. Imagine dropping something. Hearing and seeing it drop. And somehow it's in your hand. All under a couple seconds. I swear to God my mom told me my cousin died from an overdose a year before he actually did. So when she told me and I replied "Sayi." From an overdose. Right? She was shocked that I already knew. I thought she was somehow messing with me until she showed me his death date. I still can't really explain that one. Edit. A lot of people are mentioning that he could have overdosed before and survived. Making it that I assumed he died the first time. The weird thing is that I barely knew anything about this cousin. My mom's extended side is very big with 22 first cousins, 40 plus second cousins, etc. So there's a lot of cousins I've never met personally, and I specifically only remember being told about his drug addiction in context of it contributing to his death since my family speculates it was intentional and not accidental. Basically, I never really knew much about him while he was alive. So while it's very plausible I could have heard about him overdosing beforehand, the way I remember it is very different. Memory is a fickle thing though, so who knows. I'm a security guard at a distribution warehouse. Sometimes I have to work graveyard shift. During this time the only people on the premises is me and a rare truck driver bringing in a late load. Our guard shack is concrete with sliding glass doors on the sides, no locks, and big windows in front and back. Sometimes when I'm the only person on the premises, I'll see a reflection of someone walking past the shack. Every inch of this shack and the yard is covered by security cameras. No one has shown up on the footage when I see these reflections. When I was about 15 I was eating some cereal and accidentally dropped my spoon into the kitchen floor. I watched the spoon fall. As it hit the floor, it just vanished into thin air. I was shocked. I thought surely my eyes were playing tricks on me. It must have just bounced away and gone out of sight or something. I spent 30 minutes searching the kitchen for that spoon. I was honestly kind of freaked out. I tried to think of every possible place it could have gone. There weren't many places it could have ended up. I never found it. Edit. Fixed typo. I have dreamed of 2 or 3 situations before they actually happened exactly as in my dreams. It can't be a DJ cute vu because I remember dreaming about it. It wasn't just a feeling of familiarity. Yes. This used to happen to me all the time, except it wasn't a dream, it was like a vision type thing I'd see when I was lost in thought. It would always come with like my emotions attached with the situation where I am. Then sure enough sometime later I would find myself to be in the situation with the same emotions I felt in this sim moment. Wasn't all that weird I guess, but still. When I was a kid there was this house right before the entrance to my subdivision that was in this super deep valley. I remember calling it the house in the hole and thinking about how much it must have sucked when it rained and how great of a sledding hill the sides would make. Then one day we were passing it and there was no valley. It was at the same level as the road. I asked my mom what happened to the hole and she had no idea what I was talking about. To this day, I no longer live there. I always check when I drive past. Sometimes when we are kids things seem so much bigger than when we are adults. I remember this giant pit in the back of my childhood home and I sometimes drive by and the pit is so freaking tiny. Same with sledding hills that I thought were massive but were barely hills. Another explanation is someone filled that valley with dirt. A few nights back I was wide awake in the guest bed at my place and heard quiet footsteps and then my wife say, "Hey," gently at the door. It seemed weird. So I got up to see what she wanted and she was fast asleep in bed. Before you ask, I was in a separate bed as I have a cold and have been snoring really loudly. If you had a cold, 10-12 Benadryl could have caused this. 2. I had some solid painkillers after a surgery and had exactly one hallucination that I'm aware of. I heard my new puppy pee on the floor. I was sleeping on the recliner because my head had to be elevated. And my boyfriend came out of our room, past me, to the fridge for a snack. Door opened. Light came on. I warned him about the pee. And he said he'd clean it up in the morning. And went back to bed. He never came out of the room and the puppy hadn't peed overnight. What an incredibly boring hallucination. Not especially creepy. But it did used to unnerve me when I was young. When I was little I used to have a Thomas the Tank Engine book with fold out parts and flaps. There was this one part which was like a shed and you could lift a flap to see inside it. Inside was all the usual gardening shed paraphernalia. But there was also a black cat sat in there. Here's the glitch though, I swear the cat wasn't always there. I used to love that book. But every time I read it I would get to that page and guess whether the cat would be there or not. Not a clue what that was all about really. But it creeped a young me out. Long ago when I was kid, my younger brother and me were driving our bikes on the embankment alongside the river and there was a huge dam thingy on the river. I grew up in this town and I never knew we had a dam. When we got home I told my mother that it was the first time I have seen the dam. And she did not know what I was talking about. Later I returned, there was nothing there. My brother does not remember. But I have seen it as clear as day. I'm sure it was my imagination. But it's strange. I did not dream it. Since my brother remembered that we were there. He just doesn't remember the dam. In college I delivered pizzas to make money. I had a delivery that should have taken about 20 minutes. When I returned to the store the manager asked me what had taken so long. I asked him what he meant and he pointed to the computer showing I had been gone for an hour and 7 minutes. I don't remember delivering the pizza. Only turning into the store when I was returning. Before anyone suggests aliens. No. My anus was not sore. I also don't drink or use drugs. 20 years later I still have no idea what happened. I have several times had multi-plane deja vu, as I like to call it. Basically, I'd have a deja vu moment about something. Not too odd. But then later I'd have the same exact deja vu moment again. And it's always super specific things. Too. Oh god yes. And I always know that. I've already had a deja vu of this. Plus, most of the time it includes things that are in my life very briefly. So I couldn't have experienced it before. I dropped a quarter and it just disappeared. I never heard it hit the ground. I spent a good 10 minutes looking for it under furniture and the hem of my pants and all around. It just literally disappeared. I dropped 5 credit debit cards on my bedroom carpet while emptying out a handbag. Picked 4 of them up. No sign of the 5th anywhere, not under the bed. etc. Got it replaced. 7 months later. The fecker is lying in plain sight on my bedroom carpet. Exactly where it should have been the first time. Assuming you vacuumed occasionally. That actually pretty terrifying. Poured a freshly boiled water to a glass. Walked over to check my email on the phone for less than 1 minute. I'm very sure because the same song is still playing. Walked back. The glass of water is room temperature. I might just have had a stroke. Never checked. I did that recently but had, despite my best intentions, had not turned the kettle on. Which is probably what you did too. It was a huge surprise when 5 minutes later, after the tea steeped, I had a big sip of room temperature tea. I was sitting on my porch and had my debit card on the table in front of me. I went inside to get something to drink, patio furniture in sight and a 6-foot privacy fence around the yard. I also lived alone. Went back outside and it was just gone. I searched everywhere, inside and out, but couldn't find it. Nothing was withdrawn from my account, so 2 days later I cancelled it and requested a new one. 2 weeks later I went out to sit on the porch. I did this every day, and the old card was sitting right there on the table. It just fucking appeared. There was nothing else on the table. It just was gone. And then it wasn't. Not long after 9/11. On a Friday. I got up to go to class and had one of those mornings. Broke a glass getting something to drink. Tripped over something going to my car. Was late to class due to a wreck on the way there. Not me, thankfully. While at school we heard about a plane crashing. Something about the wings blowing off. Went to work. Went home. The next morning my roommate wakes me asking if I'm skipping class today. After he convinces me it is still Friday, I get up and go to class. After noticing the glass I broke is not broke. On the way I pass the same wreck in the same spot. All day I wait to hear about the plane, but it never happens. Ends up kinda a normal day. The next day they arrest the she-bomber, and I have wondered if someone rewound that day to stop him and somehow I didn't reset with it. So, before my husband and I were married we lived separately. He would come over and spend time, then leave later at night, like 11 or 12. He left one night out my front door, which has 3 locks, a lock on the knob, a deadbolt, and what I call a hotel lock. It's a lock that you flip the long piece over onto a short peg and then the door can only be opened a few inches. Well, he left and used his key to lock the knob and deadbolt. But I thought to myself, I have to go lock the hotel lock. I come down and it's locked already. Absolutely no way he could have locked it from outside. 10 years old. Grandma's front yard. She keeps her yard immaculate. Award worthy. It's dusk. Family get together. Mum says, "Toss me the car keys." So I do. My throw is short by finger lengths. I assume they landed in the short grass. But we never found them. That was 30 years ago. The yard has been mowed hundreds of times. The house is still in the family. Still well taken care of. No keys. Ever. In my childhood, kindergarten in USSR, I distinctly remember the sky going dark for some time. Teacher rushing us all inside. Then back bright again, unknown time later. My parents denied there was solar eclipse that day. I couldn't find any record of one either, though should check again. I distinctly remember that. I was in an eclipse. Just inside the shadow line. The sky darkened and you could look up at the moon sun. Friends who were just a few minutes south of the shadow said the sun might have been a little less intense. But not much. They could not look at the sun without eclipse glasses. At least some schools in the area didn't let the kids outside at the time. They were afraid the kids would look at the sun and blind themselves. If you didn't know about an eclipse ahead of time, it would be easy to miss. A few months before my first car accident I dreamed about it happening. Everything from the sounds to the placement and the smell was the same. Thing is, the girl driving tried to get me to find a different ride because she didn't want to do any extra driving that day. And after the crash I told her about my dream and she said she had the same one the night before and that's why she didn't want to drive. Freakish dude. My partner and I have the same vivid memory of something happening that never happened. We are both convinced that our friend was with us at another friend's wedding and he fixed the sound system during the reception. Except the friend we remember fixing the sound system was not at the wedding and does not even know the person who was having the wedding. But we both distinctly remember our friend not only being there, but actually saving the day. We sometimes catch ourselves talking about it and once praised our friend for saving that wedding and he was like, "What? Who's X? I wasn't even there." When I was little I had a wooden doll crib that rocked that was maybe about 1.5 feet long. I kept it on the other side of my room from where my bed was. I had one of those dreams where you feel like you're falling and it wakes you up. When I woke up the crib was sitting on top of me on my chest and abdomen. One time in the middle of the night, I heard somebody scream my name. They just suddenly screamed, "Charles," at the top of their lungs. Nobody was there. And my parents were asleep. Later that same month, my dad was making coffee and heard me whisper in his ear, "Dad." He turned and nobody was there. I have zero recollection of doing this. I have sleep paralysis a lot, which may explain the first one. But I have no idea how my dad heard me. I don't believe in ghosts. But this does creep me out. There was one morning before school when I randomly thought, double quote, "I haven't heard Hey Ya in a long time." It was a good song though. Just a meaningless whatever while brushing my teeth. I arrive at school and all of my friends have Hey Ya stuck in their heads. They were humming it all day and when I asked them about it they said they thought about it that morning. None of us had heard the song recently enough to all be reminded about it. I once fell asleep wearing a pajama shirt. Yes, I am sure. I remember putting it on. Then I woke up in the middle of the night, freezing, only to realize that I had no shirt on. I turned the light on and there it was, folded on top of my bed table. I still don't know what happened that night but it has never happened again. My first thought was that someone must have undressed me, as if I would have slept very heavily or something. And it creeps me out thinking about it. Edit. After reading your answers I guess I was sleepwalking. I've never done it before or since then but that seems like the only reasonable answer. But if that's the case, I'm damn good at folding clothes in my sleep. I should do it more often.